Guam. Although it looks like a tiny dot on the map, it is the United States' strongest fist in the Pacific. Located just a few thousand kilometers from China's coastline and overlooking endless seas, this small American territory may now be the most critical element in shackling China's aggression. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait, territorial claims in the South China Sea, military exercises, and spy balloons have all changed the landscape of this island. Nuclear submarines have begun to appear in the region. Why is the U.S. rearming this strategic island and expanding its base network in the Western Pacific? The answer lies hidden in the hull of a submarine quietly approaching the shores of Guam. On April 23, 2025, the nuclear-powered guided missile submarine USS Ohio arrived at Guam Naval Base while conducting operations within the area of responsibility of the U.S. 7th Fleet. Images released by the U.S. Navy show the submarine passing through Ypres Harbor and docking at the base, with personnel on deck. Captain Andy Kane, commander of the Gold Crew, was on the bridge during the arrival. According to the U.S. Navy, the deployment is part of routine operations in the region. However, as the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy rapidly expands and the Indo-Pacific increasingly becomes a theater of great power competition, the Ohio's presence in Guam is far from routine. The deployment of the USS Ohio to Guam in 2025 marks the third visit to the Western Pacific by an Ohio-class SSGN within a year, following port visits by the USS Florida in July and the USS Michigan in November 2024. According to publicly available naval activity reports and open-source ship tracking, the USS Ohio departed Bangor in late February, stopped in Hawaii, and set sail westward from Pearl Harbor in early April. The submarine was still in Guam as of May 6th, conducting joint training with the U.S. Marine Corps as part of an exercise described by the Navy as supporting flexible, forward-deployed, and rapid response options. Why Guam? To understand this, we need to take a closer look at Guam's strategic position and the deterrent it poses to China. Guam is at the center of the U.S.'s strategic presence in the Western Pacific. Although geographically close to the Asian continent, the island is considered U.S. territory. This location enables the U.S. to play an indispensable role as a forward base for its military activities in the Indo-Pacific region. In recent times, the Washington administration has re-emphasized the importance of bases in the Western Pacific to counter China's growing military and political influence, and has decided to reinforce Guam and its surrounding facilities. The port and airport infrastructure in Guam is equipped to meet the ship and aircraft maintenance and repair needs of the United States in the region. For example, large warships, nuclear submarines, and strategic bombers can be refueled and maintained here, enabling them to continue their operations without interruption. With the increasing perception of threat in the region, missile defense systems in Guam are being reinforced. This contributes to further strengthening the early warning and interception mechanisms against a possible ballistic missile attack on the region. The ports in Guam serve as a logistics base for the U.S. Navy's aircraft carrier and submarine fleets patrolling the Pacific. The U.S. is not only opening new facilities on the island, but also expanding and deepening existing ports to accommodate larger tonnage ships. The submarine's presence in Guam places it approximately 2,900 kilometers away from China's coastline and contributes to the U.S. military posture along the second island chain. This doctrine aims to control China's power projection into the Central Pacific, while maintaining flexible, forward-deployed assets capable of responding rapidly across the region. With over 150 Tomahawks on board, the Ohio's strike capability alone can shape an entire battlefield before surface forces arrive. The ballistic missile variant can carry up to 24 intercontinental ballistic missiles. Regardless of which variant is deployed, this submarine's firepower creates a serious deterrent effect. A nuclear-powered submarine can remain submerged for extended periods and traverse oceans without refueling. It is difficult to detect due to its high-tech sonar and silent propeller systems, especially in the Asia-Pacific waters. considering the depth of the sea and underwater conditions. Determining the location of the USS Ohio will be challenging for Beijing. Nuclear submarines force potential adversaries to change their strategic calculations due to their stealth. For example, if China is planning a naval operation or missile attack in the region, it would feel uneasy about facing a massive missile force whose location at sea is unknown. This uncertainty significantly complicates the plan. Tomahawk cruise missiles can have a range of up to 1,600 kilometers. In the ballistic missile variant, the range exceeds 10,000 kilometers. This means that an Ohio-class submarine patrolling the Western Pacific has the operational capability to strike the East Asian coast or interior regions in a short time. The U.S. already has aircraft carriers and air bases in the Pacific. Deploying a nuclear submarine underwater means that even if surface and air assets are destroyed, an invisible deterrent remains. Therefore, a potential aggressor cannot escape the risk of being suddenly hit by a barrage of Tomahawks, even if it manages to penetrate all defense layers. The Ohio class can travel at an average speed of 46 kilometers per hour. When necessary, it can reach higher speeds for short periods. For example, in a crisis, it can quickly move to the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait by receiving logistical support from facilities in Guam or Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. The nuclear propulsion system does not require frequent logistical replenishment. Therefore, the submarine can remain in a hidden position for weeks, even months. This constant patrol feature makes it a 24/7 threat to the enemy. In other words, Ohio-class submarines are at the top of the deterrence hierarchy and have become one of the key elements of the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific strategy. When we take a closer look at this nuclear submarine, which has become a key element in the waters of the Pacific, we come across some striking facts. The USS Ohio, the first of the Ohio class to enter service in 1981, began its service life as a ballistic missile submarine and the cornerstone of America's nuclear triad. Following the 1994 Nuclear Posture Review, which concluded that 14 SSBNs were sufficient for strategic deterrence, plans were made to convert 4 Ohio-class submarines into guided missile submarines. The conversion of the Ohio began in 2002 and was completed in 2006, emerging as a cruise missile powerhouse and special operations platform. In its new configuration, the Ohio exchanges Trident nuclear missiles for 154 Tomahawk land attack missiles and retains 4 torpedo tubes for Mk-48 heavy torpedoes. 2 missile tubes have been redesigned as lockdown compartments for deploying up to 66 special operations personnel. Advanced communication, surveillance upgrades, and reconfiguration for covert missions have made the SSGN a crucial tool in the Navy's traditional deterrence strategy. The final revision from 2022 to 2025 was no small achievement. Over 512,000 maintenance days were allocated, encompassing the replacement of the propulsion shaft, modernization of torpedo tubes, structural protection, and addressing material degradation. Complex repairs, such as the refurbishment of a damaged section of trim and ballast pipes, required specialized mock-ups and reinforcement techniques. Following the final certification from the Navy's Naval Sea Systems Command on February 24, 2025, the USS Ohio returned to the operational fleet fully ready for duty. The USS Ohio's return to Guam is a reaffirmation of the strategic architecture. With the second island chain serving as a geographical buffer and launchpad, U.S. submarines can shape the battlefield before surface fleets are committed or allies are drawn directly into conflict. In a potential Taiwan scenario or a South China Sea emergency, submarines like the Ohio could play an early and decisive role in shaping the tactical landscape. They could block shipping, attack coastal defenses, and deploy special forces well before any overt action. Meanwhile, the return of the USS Ohio coincides with a period of accelerated submarine modernization and deployment in the Indo-Pacific. The Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy currently has more than 370 ships, including 12 nuclear-powered and 48 diesel-electric submarines. China's Jin-class SSBNs provide strategic nuclear deterrence at sea, while the Shang-class SSNs offer rapid strike capabilities. Notably, China continues to develop new generation submarines, including the Type 096 SSBN and Type 095 SSN, featuring enhanced stealth, sensors, and durability. Other regional actors are also gaining momentum. Under the AUKUS security pact with the US and the UK, Australia is purchasing nuclear-powered SSN AUKUS submarines. India is investing in new Kalvari-class submarines and has a program for indigenous SSBNs. Singapore now operates Invincible-class submarines, and Pakistan is integrating Hangor-class submarines based on China's Type 039A design. The U.S. response is focused on forward deployment and modernization. In addition to 4 SSGNs, the Navy has deployed Virginia-class fast attack submarines, including the USS Minnesota, to Guam. In addition to all this, the U.S. is expanding its base network in the Western Pacific. According to open sources and recent defense analysis reports, while Guam and Hawaii are typically the first places that come to mind when referring to the U.S.'s base network in the Western Pacific, the Washington administration has clearly demonstrated in recent years that it will not rely solely on these 2 main bases. With the goal of containing China's military influence and responding quickly to regional crisis scenarios, efforts to revive old or dormant facilities on Pacific Islands and in allied countries such as the Philippines have gained momentum. For example, Tinian is located in the Mariana Islands, approximately 160 kilometers north of Guam. During World War II, it served as a strategic airbase for the U.S. military and is even known as one of the takeoff points for the Enola Gay. The U.S. Air Force and Marine Corps are increasing their training and forward deployment activities around Tinian International Airport. The military intends to expand the existing runways on Tinian to create a backup base capable of accommodating large cargo aircraft and fighter bomber jets when necessary. If Guam or another facility in the Pacific is damaged, Tinian could be activated as a backup airbase. Given China's missile threats in the region, Tinian is considered a critical backup under the distributed deployment doctrine. Saipan, located just north of Tinian, also served as an important U.S. forward airbase during World War II. Today, Saipan International Airport is occasionally used by U.S. military aircraft for training purposes. Marine Corps amphibious operation training exercises are conducted at various points on the island. Saipan, along with the Tinian-Tinian pair, offers the closest air-land combination in the Pacific after Guam. It stands out as a backup base concept against enemy missile attacks within the island chain strategy in the Pacific. Rota is a relatively small island between Guam and Tinian. Currently, there is no large-scale military base, but there are rumors that it is being quietly developed as a logistics support and forward storage facility. It is claimed that the U.S. Marine Corps or Navy could establish coastal surveillance radar and small-scale storage facilities there. Rota is part of the supply and maintenance line due to its geographical location. By developing this island, the U.S. is creating an alternative port and supply point along the Japan-Philippines line. Palau, located in the southern part of the Western Pacific, is a country with which the U.S. maintains close relations under the Compact of Free Association. It has long provided logistical support to U.S. forces. Since 2022, the U.S. and Palau governments have decided to develop areas designated as defense sites. These include improving the military use of the airport on Palau's main island, Babeldaob, and constructing small piers in some coastal areas. Palau is notable for its proximity to the South China Sea and the Philippine Sea. By creating a forward position further south for the U.S., it enables the U.S. to establish a presence closer to China's potential sea lanes. Yap Island, one of the 4 main states of the Federated States of Micronesia, is located between the Philippines and Guam. The U.S. renegotiated the Compact of Free Association with the FSM in 2023. According to information reported in the press, A radar station and a possible air corridor expansion are on the agenda in Yap. This infrastructure could play a critical surveillance line role in monitoring Chinese naval movements in the Western Pacific, coordinating maritime patrols, and deploying air assets if necessary. Wake Island is located west of Hawaii and northeast of Guam. It is a strategic coral atoll that was occupied by Japan during World War II. It has long been used by the U.S. Air Force and the Department of Defense as a silent refueling and radar base. Wake Island Airfield provides a runway for U.S. warplanes to land and take off when necessary. It has also been used for ballistic missile defense tests. Recently, the U.S. has been quietly upgrading Wake Island's air and storage infrastructure. Although geographically farther from Taiwan and Japan, it is seen as an additional buffer within the island chain strategy. It serves as both a refueling stop and a secure facility relatively distant from China's missile range in the middle of the Pacific. The Clark Air Base and Subic Bay Naval Base, which closed after the Cold War, had been abandoned since the U.S. withdrawal from the Philippines in the 1990s. However, China's aggressive stance in the South China Sea in recent years has led to a revival in Manila-Washington relations. Between 2023 and 2025, 4 new sites were designated under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA. Laulo Airport, Camilo Osayas Naval Base, Balabac Island, and Mactan Benito Ebuan Air Base. These bases provide the ability to quickly intervene in the disputed islands in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. U.S. troops can deploy on Philippine soil when necessary and receive logistical support to create an effective front against China's pressure in the region. The Palauan region, where Balabac Island is located, is particularly noteworthy due to its proximity to the Spratly Islands. Manila views U.S. assistance as a shield against China. Other small bases in the Pacific are also of vital importance to the U.S. Kwajalein Atoll is home to the Ronald Reagan Ballistic Missile Defense Test Site, a U.S. ballistic missile test site. It is a strategic facility that has hosted missile defense and space surveillance systems for years. It is being reinforced with additional radars and surveillance equipment in the new period. Midway Atoll has historical significance but no active major base. However, its potential for logistics or unmanned aerial vehicle deployment in international crisis scenarios is being discussed. Johnston Atoll is known as a former chemical weapons disposal site. It is officially closed, but the U.S. Navy has signaled that it could use the site for unmanned systems if necessary. As can be seen, the U.S. is adopting a distributed and flexible basing doctrine in response to China's rising naval capabilities and its claims to critical waterways such as the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. Instead of a model consisting solely of large bases in Guam or Japan, it is establishing small but strategic facilities across the Pacific Islands. These can be summarized as follows. In addition to aircraft carrier groups, land-based missile systems, radar networks, and air bases deployed on islands will enable a swift response to any potential Chinese attacks or regional moves. China's ballistic missile capabilities pose a risk of targeting U.S. large bases. The new small facilities give U.S. forces the advantage of a distributed position, preventing them from being disabled by a single missile attack. Facilities in regions such as the Philippines, Palau, and Micronesia are becoming bridgeheads with the approval of local governments. This provides the U.S. with the opportunity for localized defense. The opening or renovation of these bases sends a message from Washington that I am not withdrawing from the region. On the contrary, I am strengthening my presence. At the same time, it reinforces the U.S.'s actual presence in areas that China refers to as our backyard. In the coming years, it is expected that steps such as increasing the capacity of these bases, establishing new radar and missile defense systems, and developing logistical infrastructure will accelerate. As long as geopolitical tensions in the Asia-Pacific region persist, these quiet but critical bases in the Pacific will remain on the agenda. Thank you for following us.